Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. Glad that you are here. We have a great show lined up tonight. We have Harley Milne with us tonight. It is going to be a great show. I'm excited for you, just as excited as you are for me. Paraglidingtalk.com is live. All right. Well, I want to just real quick do some order of business. Sean Napsker's with us in moderation. Anthony Peregringo is with us. Craig Taylor is moderating. Also, KC8ORW, Nick Fasekas is with us. And we're going to have a great show tonight. If you have questions, get those things fired up, because if you've got some good stuff, we're going to put your name in the chat. Your name's going to go into the spinny wheel of winning things, and we're going to give something away right around the halfway mark. And then maybe, who knows, somebody else shows up. We might give something else away too. Paraglidingtalk.com is the website. Go check out some of the past episodes. If you want to support the show on Patreon or PayPal, you can find the links in the description. This show is brought to you by ppgsmoke.com. Amazing stuff at PPG Smoke. Go check out the website. If you haven't seen, there's some great deals coming out. We have the stimulus. Did you guys see the stimulus email? Yeah, everything was $599. $599. Chase cam, $599. Smoke machine, $599. I mean, it was amazing deals right when the stimulus came out. So go check out his website. Also, the paramotorprops.com. If you're interested in getting a hold of them, maybe you want to get some new props, or maybe you want to try the 3-blade. Might be talking about something. 3 blades. Go check out their website. That's paramotorprops.com. Really appreciate those sponsors. Also, paraorangeproducts.com is a sponsor of the show. Go check out their website at paraorangeproducts.com. Harley, thank you so much for coming on the show again. You're in a hotel room, sacrificing just so you can be on the show. I know that you wanted to be home to do it, but thank you for coming to join us tonight. We just had to know the scoop. We wanted to know the background. We wanted all the gritty details about what happened on your adventure. And if you don't know Harley Milne just created a record. No one's done this that I know of. He just created we'll call it a world record. He flew across the United States from the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast in about 2 weeks, from San Diego to somewhere in Florida, and Pacific to the Atlantic. Pretty amazing. So we're going to talk about that tonight. I want to just encourage you to tap in, share this video with somebody. I don't know how many people are watching right now, but I assume that there's a handful of people watching. And so I'm excited that you're here. Please say something in the chat. If anything, just harass Sean to rig the wheel for you. And, yeah. And so
that works.
It does. You just have to pay him.
For the right price, he'll do it.
Yeah, he'll rig it for you. I don't even know if it's riggable, but
it depends on the type of rice. I'm
yeah,
very, very particular.
Need some good rice and toilet paper flying off the shelves.
The soft kind.
Harley, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to come on your show, man. So thank you.
I'm fired up. I've got some questions for you. First, I wanted to talk about just a very vague question. How did it go? We watched from, I watched on my phone every day. I would see your progress. I would it was on my computer. And when I would finally get home, get on my computer, it was just saved on my home screen. I would see how much progress you made that day. We followed, I know there was a bunch of us.
That's awesome. It's the one metric I wasn't able to get my hands on. And I'm not even sure I know how, but I would love to know how many people actually looked at my progress each day.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people that I've talked to have all said, yeah, no, we were following. I mean, that's how Mark Honeycutt found me in the middle of the air. So that was awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. How did it go? And let's just open up this can of worms.
I mean, so looking back, I mean, so I went to Blackhawk Paramotors today and did another coffee with Mike and Mike. And it's just kind of like, did I really pull this off? Did I really do it in 8 days? And the reality was things went incredibly well, despite there being a few challenges along the way. I couldn't have asked for better weather, really. And we could have done better with the weather that we had. So I think we were just very, very fortunate that with the team that we had, with the advice that I had gotten from a few different people, and quite frankly, Dave Wirt just ordering up the weather that we needed to pull this off, I thought it went just incredibly well. And looking back, the few things that didn't go so well, we know better now. And that was the cool thing, where we had a team of, 5, 6 people on the ground that had never worked together, never done anything like this before. I hadn't flown anything close to the scale that we were flying on. And yet we just came together and we all understood our roles very, very clearly and just got down to business and made it happen. So,
Well, I have a special guest that is just logged in. Ray Pierce is with us, the ground support.
I sure am.
He made it in.
Barely got home.
Harley, he didn't know that you were going to be on, and so this is a special treat for him. You made it.
Just barely.
Yeah.
The weather here in Wyoming is pretty snotty right now, and I just got in from Denver, so it wasn't a sure thing.
Oh, I flew through Denver one time. We had a layover there. It's interesting.
It's interesting. It's a good place to leave and not necessarily be from.
Yeah, dead of winter too. Yeah, brutal. So we just opened up this can, Ray, and I'm glad that you joined us as well. If you guys don't know Ray Pierce and his brother actually were the ground support for this coast to coast record. And that's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it a record because I'm going to try to inspire some other people to take a shot at it. And actually, we have a guy that wants to challenge the record. He's on the line here. Let me just find him. Super Dell. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But I think you may have started something. I'm just saying, Harley, I have a feeling there's going to be some challengers. And so.
How was it funny, Robert? Over.
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
I'm obviously very hopeful that will happen. I think I got to talk to Judson in Florida, and he was very excited about what we did. So, if there's guys like Judson and Bo that can come and kick my butt and make 8 days seem like a lifetime, that would be huge.
I mean, I don't know how much faster you can do it. You were going maybe 30, 40 miles an hour average speed. How fast would it take for you to drive that across the country? Right.
Well, that's the kicker, the driving part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had thought we would have a third vehicle at one point, and unfortunately that didn't come together. But as it turns out, we totally needed it. If you're going to do it faster than we did, my guess is you're probably going to need a bigger support team, or you've got to stage the support team. And if you're trying to set a record, then you've got to have more people that are certified to be able to track and make sure that you've done everything that you're supposed to do. So beating the time that we did is going to take some additional planning. But I'm going to keep putting this out there, was that, if you really look back at a day-by-day play, which I hope we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, we know from what we got to at the very end that this was possible with that exact same weather to do it in 6 days. And the reason I can say that is because, we stopped in Florida the afternoon, right? Day 8. We stopped there and waited till the morning to go to the shoreline so that the media could be there and other people can come out there and meet us, because they didn't know when we were going to get there. So that was planned, and that added the best part of, 14 hours to the total length of the trip. So that's the first thing. The second thing was that, we lost one full day to weather. So if you take that full day away, instead of it being 8 days and 2 hours, then suddenly it's 7 days and 2 hours. And I think had we not had some of the concern that I had, sort of not knowing what I was going to be crossing over those mountains, and really sort of doing something that was pretty extreme for the first time. Had I climbed to a much higher altitude on that very, very first flight, I could have made an extra 40 miles on that very first flight, which would have meant that the very last flight that I did on that very first day would have put me all the way up in Gila Bend or Gila Bend, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, Gila Bend. You're right.
And had I done that, I would have missed some of the bad weather that sort of had me land out at the Air Force Base. But also, so that was day one. So we could have made more miles on day one, absolutely. And then on the day that, that I ran out of sunlight, had we just got an extra 30 or 40 minutes on that day, we could probably have got another 40 miles covered on that particular day. And had we achieved
60
that,
miles an hour.
well, we were doing, actually that particular day, we were doing almost 90. And in fact, had I climbed a little bit faster, I would have been doing 90 for a much longer period of time. So of course, it's very easy to look back and get, oh my God, had I done this differently, we could have absolutely have done it in 6 days. Ray would have quit because he would have said, that's enough. I'm not keeping up with this guy anymore. Good luck to him, and we'll see him on the other side.
Yeah. Right. Ray, at any point, did you want to quit?
Oh, heck no.
Okay, good.
No. We were all in. There wasn't any quit in any of us, really.
Nice.
And we were kind of itching for a little bit of a day off there on what ended up being our day 4, the day we ended up sitting out. But that wasn't much of a day off because we were in the middle of nowhere, getting rocked in the wind on top of that, at that interstate exit there in West Texas. And just nobody was happy. Everybody would have been much better if we'd have been able to keep going, but we just couldn't. But the biggest thing about how we could have saved that day was if we could have got 1 more hour somewhere before that, if we could have made it 1 hour further past where we were stuck on top of that hill and on that interstate exit, we would have never got grounded that day because there was a really narrow strip right there in West Texas that was blown out, and we were parked right in the middle of it. And we could have backtracked, and we could have done that within the rules we were trying to abide by. We could have backtracked and got him launched, but then he'd had to go through that high wind zone and out the other side without getting blown so far south that he would had wasted a tank of gas to do it anyway. So if we had made it 1 hour further, we wouldn't have got grounded by that wind. We'd have been in the bottom of a valley another 40, 50 miles further away. Or if he had the 90 mile an hour, he could have made it 90 or 100 miles further. And it would have just been a completely different game. And the weather after that wouldn't have changed enough, having moving backwards one day to have screwed anything up. So yeah, the learning curve was really steep that first 3.5, 4 days. That was painful, but it was fun. We didn't have time to really think about it all that much, but I'd say 80% of this documentary is going to be the first 3 days, and the rest of it was a little more routine, just going through the motions, get him fueled up, get him launched, get him to the next one. And that was the second half of the trip. The ground team was the handicap because we couldn't drive as fast as he could fly because we were on back roads instead of I-10 or I-8, And I mean, the first half of the trip, we were on interstates. Keeping up wasn't that big of a deal, except for the day he was doing 90 on that one flight. We didn't even try. We stopped at Anthony Vella's house and went at his flying field and talked to him for half an hour because we knew Harley was already doing 90 miles an hour. It didn't matter how fast we drove. We could burn the tires off the truck and we'd never make it there before he landed. So didn't even try.
You guys know Greg Anthony Harris is in the chat, right?
Well, why isn't he in here talking?
Yeah, I know. Can somebody send him an invite? Does any of you guys have his email? Or can you send it to me in the private chat?
I can do it. I think
Excellent.
I can do it. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about preparations. You guys obviously need to do some preparation. I want to talk a little bit about the groundwork. You had to put some food together, obviously, because you didn't want to have to go and find a Taco Bell in the middle of nowhere. What did you guys plan as far as food? How much food did you stockpile? What was your anticipation on how long it was going to take to fly coast to coast?
So publicly we had talked 14 days, and that was based off some of the information that I'd had from Jean-Francois, and that I had heard, of other people claiming to have crossed the country. And to my knowledge, still nobody officially had actually gone from the coastline that of California all the way to the coastline of Florida there. So as far as I know, I'm the first to have done that, but at the very least, it's the first official record attempt to go do that. So assuming FAI actually issued that record, then it will become an official record. So publicly, I had said 14 days, but I think fairly early on, I had admitted to the team that I wanted to do it in 10 days. And everyone smiled, and Dave Work kind of grinned because he was looking at weather and going like, okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to do it in the time that we pulled it off. I mean, even when it started to feel like it was possible, I think Ray will attest to this. I didn't want to talk about, oh my God, I think we're going to do it in 8 days. We really just focused on the job at hand. In terms of food, I don't know, Ray, maybe you want to take that question because it was quite a shopping spree.
Well, I don't know. It wasn't any different than shopping for my wife and 3 kids, but and
You guys bring a grill?
Smaller fridge. Oh yeah, we had a grill, and but we didn't end up using the grill until we ended up in Florida because it would have just taken too long. We were pushing it right up till dark, and then there was the checks to do and all that, and Cynthia ended up cooking most of the time, but it was just pork loin, potatoes, and soup and that kind of thing. Just quick, easy calories is what we ended up going with. And we had fruit for bags of grapes and oranges and that kind of thing for middle of the day snacks, because you don't have time to even stop at a fast food joint. It's just go go go. So we stopped and resupplied groceries like, well, we did it once in San Diego. Did we even do it in, and they might have done it in Texas once, and then I don't remember was that the last one? We went all the way to the coast. I don't remember for sure, but it wasn't that much.
We'll see if Cynthia comes on. I think we had to stop for syrup twice.
Oh yeah, the syrup incident. We'll let Cynthia talk about that one if she gets here.
Yeah, hopefully they can log on. Brian Simmons or Simons had a question. He said, Harley, who was it that first suggested the cross-continent challenge? Was it your idea?
So, it's a great question. When I think I was in Wisconsin at doing an interview with EAA. This was like just before we went and flew off the field there, off Pioneer Field. And as far as I know, still to this day, myself and oh my goodness, it's one of those days where I can't remember names, when Steele and I flew that area. But anyway, so the interview, they kind of said, well, what are you going to do when this thing is over? And I kind of joked, and I don't know, maybe try and fly across the country again. And it was kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, because I didn't think that was going to be possible to do, in 2020, let alone in 2021. But it was getting back to California, in July, and, August, everything got locked down again. And by September, I was miserable. And I was just like, I've spent a lot of time, being miserable sitting at home, and I was not going to do that this time. And so that's when I called Ray, because I think I had mentioned it to Ray when I got to Wyoming, and he was like, well, if you do it, you got to let me know. And so I did. I called him, and if Ray hadn't said yes, we'd probably still be thinking about it.
Nice. Little inspiration.
I gotta say, in Cynthia's defense, I think she's onto something, because there's a saying, don't cry over spilt milk. Okay. Maybe she's coming with her own catchphrase that will catch on to future generations. I'm just saying.
Syrups are
Greg
way
Anthony
harder to
Harris.
clean up, but it doesn't make as big a stink when it gets rotten. That's for sure.
Greg Anthony Harris is with us. He's here, folks.
Hi guys.
Hey,
Greg.
Yay.
Where is Cynthia?
She's a little bit busy. She will join us at some point, but she's busy at the moment.
She's doing makeup right now.
You're gonna have to make do. I'm afraid.
Nice. So we've got some questions, and I still have my questions, but I there's some really good ones in the chat. So this goes back. Jeremy Graham said for Harley, what was the jankiest state to fly through?
Jankiest state.
Yeah. And janky that's a relatively new word. So if you don't know what that means, it's kind of like a cross between junky and something that might make you angry. So you could say janky.
Yeah, I honestly,
He doesn't want to offend any state. I get it.
You ask Ray at landed and go like, so where are we?
Yeah.
If I had to guess, the emergency landing in the middle of Arizona. Arizona was the squirreliest, nastiest air because you have the mountains, and we had some wind that day, and it was just a turbulent roller coaster. Now we had wind and we had cold in Texas, but it was a smooth, cold, miserable, long flight in Texas. So he might have been way more miserable in Texas, but as far as dangerous, squirrely, nasty, I don't want to be on the ground, I don't want to be up here anymore, that would have been central Arizona.
Yeah, I bet. And
that was definitely one of the most dangerous flights that it was one flight, 2 hours, that was just downright dangerous.
Getting tossed around.
Yeah, we posted a picture of what the Fly Sky High telemetry looked like, and you could see I was bouncing up 400 feet and dropping 400 feet, and I was only maybe 50 to 100 feet off the ground a lot of the time. So and the problem, there were two problems. One was that there was a lot of rotor coming off the mountains, and then the other was, of course, as things were warming up, the thermals were getting crazy. And the real issue was that every time I tried to climb up through and over the wind that was coming out of the sort of the northeast, I would get parked and start getting flown backwards. And Dave had warned us, he said, you need to get over and above this. And I think it's one of those learning curves that I was just interested in moving forward, even if it was really relatively slowly. I didn't want to lose ground. And I think Ray pointed out that really I should have just gone with the wind, and even if I'd lost 10 miles, should have used that and climbed and headed back west while climbing to get over that bad air that I had. The problem is I would have been doing that to get to about 5,000 or 6,000 feet before the air would have changed. So it could have blown me back 20 miles, which probably wouldn't have been a big deal. We would have made a lot more distance. So, that was one of those decisions, reflecting, would I try and do something different? I probably would try it now, but at the time, Ray will tell you, I was just,
you were already pushing it.
I was in a hurry. I was not willing to go in the wrong direction for anybody.
Yeah. There's two questions that kind of go together. Never trust a skinny chef, Shane, and also Scott Julius asked the question that's kind of tied together. The question Shane asked was, how many hours did he put on his motor during the cross country, and then what was the total air time?
Yeah, so all of that information is publicized on the 50xchallenge.info page. There's a stats page that's there.
Nice.
And it has all of that.
And you don't know offhand?
No, I can answer that question. It's
okay.
I did all the numbers. So, and I'll just repeat this again, that these are unofficial numbers. but based off the data that we got off Fly Sky High. So 48 hours of actual flight time, from one area to the other. I just looked at the motor today. I took it back to Blackhawk Paramotors so that they can work on giving me a new hoop, since I damaged that one pretty badly. So they're taking care of that. But so 48 hours of flying. The engine has a total of 70 hours on it now. So I think I'd put about 10 or 12 hours on that engine before we started the trip. I think the really my biggest regret was not reducing the oil ratio mix much sooner. I just had that discussion with Blackhawk again today, and we, with the Model 800, we broke it in at 40 and went to 45 and then 50 and then 55 to 1. But with that Model 800, we really should have gone to 60 to 1 much sooner. And I think we would have got even better performance out of it.
Interesting. Now, isn't that harder on your motor?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were running that engine at about 6,800 to 7,400 RPM for 3.5 hours solid at a time. Now, admittedly, the temperatures were very, very cold, so that's less of a concern, but that engine didn't seem to matter whether I was on the ground or whether I was at 12,000 feet. It held the same, more or less the same temperature. I think at 12,000 feet, it would drop off to about 270. But yeah, that engine worked. Putting in that number of hours is at least half of what most people would do in an entire year, if not an entire year's worth of flying in just 8 days. So, and that engine really, I mean, we were operating roughly seven hours per day was, I think, the average number of hours that it actually ran at those RPMs. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm at 2,000 feet and I'm gonna crank it up a little and then I'm gonna sort of fly around a little. That engine was literally at full RPM, and I forget off the top of my head, but I think that engine is rated to operate around at a max of around about 8,500 RPM. So we still had room to push it even further. Even with the Vitarazi engines that I've had them pegged at 9,000 RPM for an hour and a half, and they do just fine. But this engine certainly earned its keep for that week.
Let's spin the wheel, Sean. No.
Yeah. Let's spin the wheel. All right. So we got everybody's name in there. I'm not going to add any more names from this moment on because I already got them in there. So here we go.
All right. This, by the way, this wheel spin is brought to you by Nebraska PPG. Josh Bowden, he runs a school in Nebraska. He also sells gear. If you want to reach out to him, you can find a link in the description. And he's such a good guy to work with, good guy to reach out to if you have questions about flying or maybe you want to get some training. Nebraska PPG. He doesn't have a website, but he does have a link to his Facebook if you want to get a hold of him.
All right. You ready, Robert?
Fire away.
Here we go.
The spinny wheel of Winnie things. By the way, this show is also brought to you by the Tri-State Skywalkers. If you're in the Indiana, Kentucky, or Ohio area, you can reach out to Brandon McLeod. Joining Flying Club will help you to grow in the sport and make you a safer pilot. If you're interested in joining the Tri-State Skywalkers, follow the link in the description. Show's also brought to you by iFly Indiana powered paragliding. Go check out the website at iflyindiana.com. Kevin and his team will get your feet off the ground. That's iflyindiana.com. Oh. Ooh. It might be me.
Ooh.
Let's go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Go, go, go.
I don't know.
Yeah, I got it.
What?
Yeah.
No, it's just past your day. Oh, wait a minute. It's about to get interesting. Uh-oh. Oh.
Boom.
Is that your first time?
That's the first time I've ever won my own wheel of Winnie things.
You have won your wheel of Winnie things.
We're 3 years in, guys.
Yeah, I know. Look at us go, right?
It's episode 154. Oh, 152.
See, that's when you know you got something good. When you got a crew that can hang for 3 years, not be at each other's throats, and just be like, "Whoa, let's do this." Yeah.
Let's spin it again. It was actually
Okay.
for a paraglidingtalk.com sticker. I didn't even tell you what it was.
Oh,
It's not even that big of a deal. It's not
You
even
don't want one of those.
it's not even a great price, but I do want to say this. Go ahead, just spin the wheel. Let's see
Well,
what
I
happens.
better take your name out because I already.
No.
we
Keep
leave
it in there. Let's see if I can
Okay.
win again.
All right, here we go.
So check this out. I did talk to Ryan Roberts today, and I think he's gonna give me some power floats to give away.
Nice.
Now that's what I'm talking about. I don't have any to give away yet, but those may be coming very soon. I like how people are saying, "Congratulations, Robert." I need to make some more stickers. Paraglidingtalk.com. By the way, Wicked Wings logos is where I got my logo for my old paraglider. And if you're interested, you can reach out to Craig Taylor.
I think, yeah, don't know who it's gonna be.
I'm gonna say never trust a skinny chef, Shane.
Oh,
That thing's still creeping along. Oh, it's gonna be right on the line.
Yeah.
well, and now what was we giving away
Shane.
on this spin?
Sticker.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, never trust a skinny chef, Shane. Congratulations. I'm gonna send this out to you. Shane, send me your information. Where do I mail this to? P.O. Box or whatever, mailbox in the front yard. Reach out to me. Go to the website, paraglidingtalk.com.
Congratulations, Skinny Chef Shane.
Yeah. Never trust a skinny chef.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting close to getting a paramotor. I can feel it. We talked about it for like an hour today. We're putting one together. We decided we're putting one together, which leads me to my next question. This is an important question. By the way, Greg Anthony Harris, where are you at right now? Are you in England?
No.
Okay,
You
good.
can't get into England right now. No, we're in Canada.
Oh, you're in Canada. Okay.
We're in the Great White North.
What time is it over there?
Time is it right now? 9:30 p.m.
Okay, so we're not keeping you up late. Okay,
Oh,
good. That's what I was worried about that.
No,
I'm just glad to see he's not having any matchsticks to keep his eyes open anymore.
Yeah. Almost. I'm getting there. I was up at 4:30 this morning.
Chris Fenmore asked the question. He said, "How much sleep did the crew and Harley get? Normal night's sleep?" ? Maybe Greg can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm up at 4:30 every morning anyway. So I actually we were up at 5:30 and I was getting an extra hour, so that was great for me. But for Cynthia doesn't get up at stupid o'clock like I do, so it was a bit harder for her. But no, we were just the energy was just there the whole time. Harley mentioned earlier on about acting like he was in a race. And it really was like that. If you didn't know any better, if you were just a stranger coming into the group after a couple of days, you would think he was actually racing somebody else. That was the vibe the entire time.
Nice.
It was a race. It really felt like that. So the energy was there. So the second we heard him kind of walking around in the trailer, because we shared a trailer with him, like we were on it. The whole team was on it the entire time. It was just it was great. It was great. I was actually going through some of the footage yesterday, and I spent a good 4 hours just listening to hundreds of pieces of music, just trying to figure out what piece of music I'd use for this part of the documentary, that part of the documentary. And I think the biggest hurdle I have to try and overcome with this documentary is just trying to get across that energy, because it was really there the whole time, It was magic.
I don't think the guys. I don't think he could have. I don't think he could have done it in his capacity without you guys. I'm not saying I doubt Harley's powers, but I'm just imagining that the ground support's probably more influential on the flight than the flying itself. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the comm system Michael Martin said, what comm system did you guys use? And what was your setup like? That had to be critical.
Yeah, I'll let Ray talk about that because I was very, very happy overall.
It was USHPA's radio frequencies, the ones that are published. They're the ground nav or the ground frequencies for the whole United States. The USHPA just has a license to use them, and we just bounced around on a couple of those, whichever ones were open in the area we were in, and same ones that most paragliding sites use, and then the text messages also. And as soon as we got over the hurdle of interference in Harley's helmet, we had he had two radios. He had the airband radio, the AM, to talk to aircraft, and he had the FM, it was a Bofang, to talk to us air to ground, and that was the USHPA frequencies. The two radios, when they were plugged into his helmet at the same time, would cause interference that would just blow him out. You know, it was constant noise in his earphones. Once we figured out that he could just unplug the airband radio if he didn't need it, then the FM radio that we were talking to him on started working perfectly. And we were talking to him 30 miles away. You know, he'd be 30 miles to the north of us, and we'd be down on the interstate talking, and he'd tell us to go ahead and skip the next waypoint. He's going to be able to make the one after that. And we'd be able to avoid making a 30-mile-an-hour or a 30-mile detour up the wrong road. You know, that kind of thing was pretty critical. And when the radios wouldn't work, before we figured out how to solve the interference in the helmet thing, it was text messages. And that was when he could, and when it was warm enough, you know, when he's at 12,000 feet, he can't pull his gloves off and type on his phone. That's probably a big mistake. So when he was at 12,000 feet, we were guessing more where he was going to end up than we were actually communicating. But the Bofang radios, and then I had a high-powered mobile radio in my truck, 50 watts instead of 5 on a Bofang. So I was talking to him with 50 watts. He was talking back to me at 5, and it worked. It worked pretty darn well. I think the only way we could have improved it would have been to have not had the interference between the AM airband, because in the beginning, that first few days, it was so dramatic anyway. We didn't have good radio communications for the most part. We did when we were close to him. Then the interference in his helmet would drive him so crazy, he'd just turn the volume down, and then we couldn't talk to him anyway.
It happens to me every once in a while. Same thing with the Baofeng. If you don't adjust the squelch, sometimes it'll really freak out. Like if it's close to your phone, it'll pick up that any kind of text message or any kind of activity that your phone's doing. Yeah.
At any point during the race, was there ever a time when you guys kind of lost track of where he was for a short period of time, or for, you know what I mean, from GPS or blocking some sort of communication?
No, there was times when InReach wasn't tracking correctly, so we had no idea what altitude he was at. But the Life 360 app that was on his phone worked pretty much perfectly the entire time. No matter what altitude he was at, the GPS tracker that was in his phone that we all had in our phones too was working perfectly. We knew where he was at and what speed he was going, but without InReach, we had no idea what altitude he was at. And so you wouldn't think that'd be that big of a deal, except for you don't know what his glide is unless you know how high he is.
Right.
So if he's on the ground flying directly over a waypoint, you don't know until he passes it that he's passing it. But if he's at 11,000 feet and 5 miles from a waypoint, you know he's not even going to try and land at that one.
Who ran the binoculars the most?
Well, actually, we didn't even use binoculars but one time.
Really?
Yeah. I could pick him out with my naked eye from the ground. If I couldn't pick him out with my naked eye from the ground, you weren't going to be able to find him.
Yeah.
Ray's got a talent for that.
Cynthia's got better eyes than I do.
Well, I don't know, man. Like we'd pull over and we look up in just a clear blue sky, like completely clear, and then Ray would be like, "There he is," and I get the camera out, and there's like I'm filming in 4K, and he's not even a pixel.
Yeah.
4K image. And Ray picks them out every single time.
When he was at least 8,000 or 9,000 feet off the ground, I couldn't find him. I'd know he was there from the trackers. I'd know he was dang near flying straight over the top of us, you know, and 10,000 feet up, and we were like 2,000 feet, and I couldn't find him. But if he was, I'd say within 7,000 feet, you could pick him out of the blue. or at least I could.
You could.
And but it comes with training. I mean, those free flight pilots that are picking people out of the sky, and I've been doing that for 20 years. I was a hang glider pilot since 2000, and you get to where you train your eyes to pick out that thing that doesn't belong up there, even though it's really hard to focus. I don't know if you ever played with that, but your eyes don't even focus on the same point when you're looking up into the blue sky.
Yeah.
It's really hard to train your eyes to do that at a distance of a couple of miles away, straight up in something with no contrast or variation. It's actually easier when there's clouds, but it's just training your eyeballs.
I got a controversial question. Did you at any point violate airspace?
Violate airspace. No, we did not
I didn't.
violate any restricted airspace. There was one occasion where I did enter Class D airspace without authorization. And that was for the emergency landing. So at that point, I had already declared an emergency. And so
were you flying with airband?
yes.
Airband radio? Okay, so you radioed in and said, "Hey, I'm unexpected landing."
It was too dangerous at that point in time. Remember, I was barely 50 or 100 feet off the ground, bouncing up and down like a yo-yo. So at that point, I had made the decision to go to the airport. At that point in time, I actually thought I was heading to a different airport, but that particular airport was in Class D airspace. But so the short answer is we did not violate airspace or any restricted airspace to make our path, and that was very much part of the planning. And the only time that I entered a Class D airspace was for the emergency. So, I don't expect the FAA will even contact me because it was an emergency, and that was the paperwork that I filled out with the Air Force Base at the time of when that occurred, and the tower didn't even want to talk to me. So
good. Crazy Uncle Bob donated $5 to the super chat. Thank you, Crazy Uncle Bob. Glad you finally made it. He's probably driving some stuff that you ordered on Amazon or somewhere. He's a truck driver. Appreciate Crazy Uncle Bob. So you get to the place where you're starting to set, starting to get it's time to land. At what point, what was your okay, now I'm gonna land kind of, what were the things that pushed you to the edge? Did you wait for that sunset, or was there to the last minute? Talk a little bit about your decision making and when it was time to land.
Well, I think like most things, your planning is one thing and reality is a whole different thing. I think typically what would happen is, after that second or third flight, we would look and see how much time did we have left and where did we think we could get to. And, typically we'd try and go as far as we could and push to use every ounce of the sunlight. And in some cases it went well, and other times not so well. And we would have to land somewhere. But in most cases, I think the first time, the first day I had tried to get to another private airport that it was a little bit further on, and just to get those extra 15, 20 miles. And it didn't work. And we ended up landing on the side of the road, and then drove back to a clearing 10 miles further down the road so that we could sleep there for the night and relaunch the next day. The second day, the engine wasn't performing particularly well at high altitude, primarily because I wasn't getting enough air through the breathing tube, and also I think we were just too rich, and so I ended up burning a lot more fuel than I had anticipated. And when I realized I wasn't going to, and this was one of those critical areas that you either make it or you're scrambling for somewhere to go that the team could get could get to me, and this is around Tulsa, I guess, and
That was around Tucson.
Tucson. All right. So, at the point that I realized I wasn't going to make this, and I'll end up shortening the route to go down a valley, and, it was coming up to sunset. We was running out of fuel. This is the end of day 2 where things didn't start off particularly well. And yeah, it was a case of look at the time, make sure that I was going to be on the ground so that we didn't break FAA rules. And then how much further could I go with the fuel? And it was just one of those things, like it was meant to happen, because, I landed at a private airfield. These guys took an hour or so to come find me, but the guy had the one thing we absolutely needed, which was a welding machine. So, had we not landed there, I don't know how much longer my camper would have been able to keep going, but, it worked out perfectly. I think the closest we came, I don't know, Ray, maybe you should tell your side of the story before I tell my side of the story, but it was the day, I was doing almost 90 miles an hour, right? And I didn't want to stop, and I had fuel. I had another gallon of fuel to keep going. And we had done 173 miles, I think it was, in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I had, at least another hour of fuel, maybe at least 45 minutes more of fuel. And so Ray should chip in here, or Greg should chip in here, because I have my side of the story, but theirs is more funny.
Go ahead, Greg. Have a swing at that one.
No, really, I insist. I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, that was the flight where he flew over the El Paso and ended up 100 miles into Texas, and we had no chance of keeping up with him. But if we would have just even trimmed out the little inefficiencies and mistakes from earlier that day, he could have got off of that ridge, because that landing after that boomer of a 90-mile-an-hour flight, that landing was where we stayed for an extra day, because that top of that hill was the exact sweet spot, the wrong place to land. And it was an actual designated bailout LZ that Harley had picked. But so he landed there on purpose and knew exactly where he was landing right at dark. And he landed within a minute or two of the end of Civil Twilight on that one, because we were driving. We were, at this point, we weren't talking to Vela anymore. We were on the road watching his telemetry, and InReach was working. We were watching him. He was at like 11,000 feet, and we've got like 6 minutes left to the end of Civil Twilight. And we're going, there is no way he can make it on the ground before it's too late. And somehow he stuck it into a spiral, and he got on the ground within a minute or so of the end of Civil Twilight.
I remember
it was unreal.
The conversation was like, that was the day where he was over 11,000 feet or whatever it was.
12,000 and change. Yeah.
For quite a while, like for over an hour. And I'm like, is he mildly hypoxic, and he just isn't judging this very well? Does he think he's got like an extra hour when actually he needs to land in 6 minutes? And then suddenly we start seeing him drop quite dramaticking. And I mean, you were within a minute or two, I think, of that, that was impressive. And I'm panicking, because we're kind of talking to him, and I'm on Google Earth. I'm looking at where he's going to land, because usually we would radio him and say, like, the wind direction or whatever. But obviously we'd be there first, and then we'd tell him, land towards the front of the truck or land towards the back of the truck, and that's where the wind direction is. So I'm on Google Maps, and I'm in Street View, like trying to figure out if there's any power lines that he needs to be aware of, so we can tell him, because we're not going to be there. So at least he can pick a direction and know whether there's going to be power lines crossing that direction. And then I think we had radio issues, and we just couldn't get through.
And we were 80 miles away from him still.
Yeah, so it was just waiting to hear from him when he got on the ground. And we had no idea how it went for like 5 minutes after he should have been on the ground. And we were like, is he on the ground? Like, is he okay? It took a little bit of time there.
I'm going to ask this question. What was the worst thing that happened on the entire trip? And you may have already mentioned it, but if that is, I have another question ready to fire.
Is that
Oh,
too?
there's so many different things.
For all
that
three
could
of you guys.
almost be with the worst.
Worst thing.
The first 30 seconds.
That's pretty bad.
Is that
But-
terrifying?
Yeah, it was the first. It was the first 30 to 40 seconds. Was the
You were like,
worst.
I can't believe what the heck we're doing right now.
There's
Flying
probably
into an east wind.
Hey,
No,
listen,
no,
I
no,
was in
no.
the air watching that, and I'm like, where is he going? And then I start to see, I saw Tom running.
That was
towards
me
the
running up
fence.
the dike.
I'm like, no, it looked like you were going down. You were kilted over, and weren't gaining any altitude, and you're coming towards a little shack or building on the other side of the big barbed wire fence on takeoff. And I thought, oh no, we're not. But he pulled it off, and he just up, you know.
What happened?
Well, that's Greg's going to share that story when he puts out the documentary and,
Okay.
and
we
do
won't
it
step on
credit. But
Yeah, we can tease a little bit. I mean, it's. I mean,
There's only
it's difficult
70
to-
people
it's
watching right
difficult-
now.
It's difficult to say too much
They
without
won't say
giving it
anything.
all away.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can say this. Like, I think almost any other pilot would have been in the hospital.
I think what
gosh.
Greg's trying to say is for the perfect shot, Greg can say, nope, that's not going to cut it, Harley. You need to do that again. Come on,
Again.
land
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
do it again.
Take
Yeah.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
All right.
it
It
was
definitely
it was-
had the making for one of those viral YouTube
Yeah.
videos of how you don't launch a paramotor. But it wasn't the launch itself went perfectly. The launch was perfect. It was something else that was not right.
Yeah.
Harley-
which kicked in like literally half a second after his foot left the ground. It was all bad from that moment on for about 45 seconds.
What would you say was the most euphoric part of the entire trip? Was there a period of time where you were in there and you were like, okay, this is pretty cool?
you know, the adrenaline definitely got going when I was at 12,500 feet, and you know I was doing 90 miles an hour. That when that happened, I was like, oh my god, I wanted, like, I did not want to land at that point. Like, I thought that was pretty damn cool. But so maybe from a euphoria perspective, yeah, that was definitely a moment like, holy shit, I'm kicking ass. Although Mark Honeycutt showed me one of his videos of him doing 105. So, you know, he kind of took out a little bit of my inflation there pretty quickly. But, you know, I thought it was pretty cool. And just covering the amount of distance in that day, and even just on that flight, I mean, it's kind of given me some food for thought, like, oh my God, could I try and do, you know, a 350-mile day if we could pick the perfect wind? And the answer is yes. You could probably have a 400-mile day if you got everything perfect. So I thought that was pretty cool. But obviously the most emotional part, I mean, it still kind of gets to me, was, you know, just landing in Florida and you know, giving my team each a hug, because that I couldn't have done it without them. So that for me is still probably the most emotional part of it.
Stress to the max for
Is
8
it-
solid days.
I can see you got Greg glowing a little bit. You know, he was feeling a little of the warmth there. He's like, oh, he remembers, you know. Awesome.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
a question, actually. I don't know if anyone's asked. I don't think anybody's asked you this yet. And it was something that was on my mind that day, but then it just slipped my mind. There was so much going on. You mentioned a couple of times on the trip, I should have got the nighttime exemption. Theoretically, with the perfect flying conditions and with a nighttime exemption, theoretically, how quickly could this be done?
So I guess there's no chance of me keeping that a secret now.
Oh, dang. It's coming out. Just in case someone broke the record.
That was
his,
my secret weapon to beat any competition on the next one,
that was
right?
the night card. The Red Bull X Alps.
Boom.
And Harley Milne has pulled his card.
I look, flying at night at high altitude is, I think, is pretty ballsy on a paramotor. At what point does sleep deprivation and fatigue overall really play in? And do I think I could probably, if we'd had more sunlight, maybe an extra 2 hours of sunlight per day, where we wouldn't have had to deal with thermals, right? You don't try and do this in the summer, even though you got much longer days, because you're just going to get blown out the sky anyway. It's not going to work. So there's this balance between, had we been able to go in the middle of November instead of the end of November, you know, that would have given us, you know, up to an hour more flying time, and that would have made a difference. I look, you know, if this is, you know, Bo or Tucker or Judson or any of these other, you know, younger guys, and you've got youth on your side, could you fly, you know, 18 hours a day? And, you know, could you do it in 3 days if you had the perfect weather and you flew all night? I imagine it's possible, but I think when you think about general aviation in all, if we're exceeding what you would do in general aviation on a paramotor, I think you've got to ask yourself very carefully, am I fit and capable enough to go do this? And I think, you know, Jeff Gorwin, I think there's only one picture out there. We're all slipped up pretty badly, but Ray and Tom and his family and I went over and we sat down with Jeff for, I don't know, a couple of hours before we left Florida. And, you know, he made the point that, you know, the problem with competition is people inherently take a lot more risk, and therefore, you know, people get hurt and in some cases much more seriously. So I think if you're going to try and leverage, you know, if you can get the FAA to give you the night waiver, would you have more flight time in ideal conditions? I think the answer is yes. And how you utilize them would have to be very, very smart. And that would have to, in part, be, you know, determined by weather and your skills and, you know, where are you going to land?
Yeah.
And,
That's what I was gonna say.
you know, if you're flying in the middle of the desert where there is no light on the ground to help you, are you flying with night vision?
Right.
You know,
Might be a good idea.
that's where you got to get Mark Honeycutt on and ask him, because I think it's going to be super tough. There's certainly an opportunity to use, you know, maybe the hour before civil light of civil twilight, and maybe the hour afterwards. Maybe it's a couple of hours. I don't know what the amount of time is, but it's certainly, if you ask anyone who's taken a night flight for the first time on a paramotor or even in general aviation, it's a scary scenario.
No doubt. By the way, this show is brought to you by the Lone Star Paramotor team. Lone Star Paramotor is the website, lonestarparamotor.com. If you're going to get some training in Texas, you reach out to Ron Turan. Him and his team have some world-class training there. Go check out the website, lonestarparamotor.com. The show is also brought to you by Torrey Pines Glider Port. If you want to learn how to free fly in the most beautiful place in the country, it's Torrey Pines Glider Port there in sunny Southern California. The website is flytorrey.com. Go check out that website. Also, if you're interested in supporting our military, we have a special announcement from Craig Taylor about a special organization. Got you slipping, Craig Taylor.
I'm putting the other links in, so I
He's
know
trying
it's
so.
coming. I try to hurry up and get it. Anyway, Resurgence PPG is a 501c3 nonprofit for veterans by veterans. And if you are not in the inter circles of the para community or within Resurgence, without getting too personal, Todd is having a slight health issue and it looks like he's going to be stuck home for a little bit. So any of those candidates that are supposed to receive training will be doing it without his assistance. So if there's anything that you can do to help, please try to give a little bit. It would be much appreciated. Also, Smile.Amazon will donate a small percentage back, and so will PayPal now, but you actually pay for that. They just ship it.
I saw that. That's pretty
All
cool.
of it is tax deductible. They do send the form through that, or from Resurgence will send you the tax deduction form. Check your NOMs and TFRs and keep your landing gear solid.
That's right. Thank you for that wonderful message, Craig Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know about Scandrett, so maybe you'll have to get me up to speed after the show. I do want to say I really appreciate what they're doing there at Resurgence PPG, because not many people really know the struggles that some of our wounded guys, and then some of the guys just that have maybe did a tour or two in Afghanistan, Iraq. They come back and you know, it's sad to see what happens to some guys, and you know, the human brain just, it can only handle so much. And being I pastor a small church here, and we're predominantly military everywhere around here, and so I get a lot of military guys that come into the church, and I've had to counsel some of the guys that have gone through some pretty gnarly stuff, and PTSD is a real thing. Giving a guy a paramotor and a wing, and giving him something to focus on instead of the mess, that is huge. And I've heard several testimonies of these guys that have said, hey, you know what? These guys, these guys have changed. Their lives are changed. And I didn't plan on saying all that about Resurgence, but I just wanted you to know that I know it's a 501c3 and everybody's getting ready to do their tax stuff. And they're like, oh, you know, I want to tax write off. And this, forget all that. What you're investing in is actually pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
So anyways, I really appreciate Resurgence PPG, and my prayers go out to Todd. And so that's that. I froze up.
Josh Fuller from the Nebraska Paramotor just donated $100 to the show.
Yeah.
And we want to donate half of that to Resurgence.
Oh, that's
Thank
awesome,
you, Josh
man.
Fuller from Nebraska.
Thank you.
What is
I was actually just messaging him just a minute ago and harassing him a little bit. People don't know what's happening behind the scenes here. I was trolling him a little bit. Hey, Josh, thanks for that, man. That's awesome. And so we're going to go to the after show. Harley, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I appreciate you doing it from a hotel, and I know you're not home and all that. Greg Greg Anthony Harris, thank you. I really appreciate what you've done, and your investment in the adventure. Ray Pierce, you put your family on hold, come and do this adventure. Super cool that you guys did that. I know there was other people involved, and so
let me add.
Yeah,
he's a meteorologist and he gets it right. Kudos for that.
Yeah, I need to talk to this guy. I need to
brownie points. Okay.
Yeah.
The weatherman on TV ain't got nothing on you.
Yeah.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
Dave Wirt had it right the whole time. I don't know how he did it, but
yeah,
he sees something the rest of the weathermen can't see.
Right.
I think he's a wizard.
He's a wizard.
I know Dave would totally appreciate that. Hey, don't forget that, myself and probably a few others are going to be down at Salton Sea at beginning of February. And then I'll also be going to Arizona Flying Circus.
Maricopa.
It'll be my first trip there. So I'm super, super excited. I hope it's crazy as it always is. And, that'll give you guys an opportunity to come seeing the Coast to Coast Flying Machine in person. And I think I might even have a few of those cruise control throttles. I'm still working on getting it. They're not quite in full production yet to be available to the general public, but I'm trying to talk Pierce into giving me maybe 10 if I can pull it off, to have for early sales to some people there, and maybe even some special pricing. So definitely come down and come find me at Salton Sea and so forth. And Off-Grid Aviation, we're going to have one of the best throttles on the market, if not the best market on the throttle. Throttle on the market.
It's super.
All right. All right, guys, we're going to go to the after show. If you want to be a part of the after show and you're one of the supporters on Patreon or PayPal or the Super Chat, just drop your email in the chat, and one of the moderators will send you an invite. And so really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the moderators, Nick, Sean, Anthony Peregringo, Craig Taylor. Thank you guys for what you do. If I don't see you on the air, I'll see you in there. And I'm looking forward till next Thursday. Paragliding Talk.